When I started brainstorming for this TED Talk about 2 months ago, like the rest of you, and I started asking everyone if they thought that people who were evil were born that way, or if they were good and something in society made them that way. I expected a response similar to one that I got in my Super Psych class, where about half the room would say that people were born good, and about half the room would say people were born evil. But instead what I got was a lot of people who would look at me and tell me that they thought people were evil. And responses I would get would be something similar to like something their sibling had done, a cousin, or a friend. So that got me thinking. Rory Charbonneau, who was sitting in the back room when we were in 3rd grade, pushed me down a staircase after I got a strike in bowling. My brother Thomas put me on a sled and pushed me down the hill into a pricker bush. And my sister Mary used to stuff pillows down my clothing, call me brownie locks because I ate too many brownies, and make me do obstacle courses to watch me fall and laugh. And so while these may all be bad things, they're not necessarily evil. So I came up with my own definition of evil, and that is, in order for someone to be evil, they need to act immorally, attain pleasure from people's suffering, act without remorse, and feel compelled to continue their acts. I came up with this definition, and I want you to all use it while we go through the rest of our TED Talk. Now, I thought, who are the most evil people in our society? I think we can all agree some of the people who are evil are serial killers. So let's look at Ted Bundy. You may know him as the lady killer, the campus killer, Ted, or just Ted Bundy. And he was famous in the 1970s for kidnapping, raping, murdering, and participating in necrophilia. He confessed to 30 murders, but authorities suspected there were way more. His defense attorney, Polly Nelson, said Ted was the definition of heartless evil. He was a sadistic sociopath who took pleasure in torturing and controlling his victims, even beyond death. Many people have looked into Ted's childhood, and they came up with that his grandfather was abusive and controlling, his grandmother was an agoraphobic who suffered from severe depression. His mother was neglectful in her parenting and moved Ted across the country when he was young. She changed his name when she remarried, and Ted, although he hated the stepfather, had to accept it. He was illegitimate, and his cousins never stopped letting him remember that. He felt inadequate in every aspect of his life. He wasn't athletic enough to make the teams he wanted, he wasn't social enough to make friends, and he wasn't smart enough to get the grades that he wanted. He felt unloved, was the word he used when he was arrested, and he never felt cared for. Nobody stopped Ted or fixed his sociopathic tendencies when he started laying knives by his little cousin's bed, when he would yell and force his stepfather to hit him, or when he would peep in girls' bedrooms. Nobody changed Ted, nobody talked to Ted, nobody changed him, and nobody set him on a different path. Two people who you probably don't know as well, Henry Lee Lucas and Otis Toole, serial killers who met in 1976, who began dating based off their mutual attraction for each other and their mutual attraction to kill. Lucas's mother was a sex worker who made him watch her with her clients. He lost an eye at a young age because his mother did not bring him to the doctor. He began to hurt animals and sexually assault his younger brother, yet nobody stepped in and stopped him. Otis's sister sexually assaulted him before age 10, and his dad prostituted him to 2 neighbors at the age of 5. Both Lucas and Otis bonded over the fact that their mothers used to dress them like girls when they were young. They began a cross-country killing spree, raping, torturing, killing, and mutilating their victims. When they were arrested, they both claimed they lacked any kind of guilt or remorse for their actions. They had dabbled in cannibalism, and they estimated that they killed 108 people. Let's look at the science. The gene monoamine oxidase A, when combined with an abusive upbringing,
Can I please have Emily Taylor up
people
to the
more
front
prone
desk
to
for
violent behavior.
She didn't come to class.
All right, thanks.
Sorry, Grace.
Leads people to more violent behavior. Now, this gene on its own, or an abusive upbringing on its own, does not lead to anything. but when combined, people are more prone to violent behavior. 32% of serial killers are not abused as children, leaving a 68% that are, which is much higher than the national average. And those who received assault by their parents were much more likely to sexually assault their own victims, whereas those who did not receive abuse by their parents were not as likely to. Dr. Herrincourt discovered childhood abuse heightened the risk for criminal behavior in adulthood by encouraging antisocial behavior during childhood. Victims of childhood violence were more likely to demonstrate violence later in life. Now, while not all serial killers were abused, the connection can't be ignored. This is why I believe that it is nurture that affects more than nature. Let's switch it up. Did you know only about 5 to 10% of people with cancer inherited a gene defect that caused that cancer? That does not mean that just because you have a gene, you are going to develop that disease or that characteristic. It just means that you might be more prone to it. Mina Lyons at the University of Liverpool doesn't think anyone is born with psychopathy genes and nothing can be done about it. People with autism sometimes exhibit violent behavior. This can be due to many things: lapse in routine, lack of sleep, undiagnosed mental health disorders, and difficulty communicating. Many serial killers also have many of these same problems. They go with undiagnosed mental health disorders mainly because their parents don't catch them, or they don't catch them themselves and no one diagnoses it, so they don't receive the help that they need. Many of them are also deemed antisocial because they lacked social abilities when they were younger and they never learned to develop it, leading to a lot of buildup which can lead to violent behaviors, like the ones that they are prone to. Jim Clemente, an FBI behavioral analysis and criminal profiler, said genetics load the gun, personality and psychology aim it, and your experiences pull the trigger. Not one thing determines who or what we are. But I feel like it's a little depressing, so let's talk about children. So now children are the exact picture of innocence. To them, the world is good, it's kind, it's generous, and that's how they see it. They're blissfully unaware and unafraid. I'm a lifeguard, and so I spend a lot of time around children, and I watch as they play together. They walk across the pool to offer other kids their food. They want them to play games with them, and they are always thinking about the kids around them. They're always having fun. They're always smiling and laughing, because what else do children do? That's why when we're young, our parents have to tell us that no, you can't go with the man who offers you candy if you just go over to his van. Because to a child, all they see is somebody offering them candy. But to their parents, they see the danger. That's why children are good, because they expect good things because they are inherently good. Now, Mahatma Gandhi said, "I've also seen children successfully surmounting the effects of an evil inheritance. That is due to purity being an inherent attribute of the soul." My point in this talk was not to convince you that everyone is born good. We will never know Ted Bundy's thoughts as a baby. But I choose to believe that people are inherently good. And I refuse to believe it is ever too late to change. You can be dealt the worst cards in your life and rise above it all to become a good person. You can be handed everything and still turn out bad. Life comes down to our choices. We are the makers of our future. We can change our own path. It is never too late to become a better person. Meredith said, there are those who say fate is something beyond our command, that destiny is not our own. But I know better. Our fate lives within us. You only have to be brave enough to see it.